Let's say you've taught your little one their letters and sounds. And let's say you've been practicing blending and you think, okay, they are ready to read their first decodable book, because you know that decodable books are the first type of books we want little ones to read. And let's say you followed my recommendation and you got one of my favorite decodable book sets, Jax and Wren. This is from Lena Miller at Decode by Heart. So you get the book out and it's super colorful and it's beautiful and you're super excited for your little one to read it. And you open the book up and you think, yes, this is the day they're going to read their very first book. And you get to the first page and you get to the first word and you see the sentence and you tell your little one, okay, what does this say? And they have no idea. And they get flustered and they think, this is overwhelming, I can't do this. And then they don't read the book. And you think, wait, they know their letters and sounds. We've been practicing blending. Why can't they read this book? I will tell you why. Before we jump into a decodable book, you need to follow some steps in order to prepare your child to actually tackle reading an entire book. That's what we're going to talk about today. In case you're new here, my name is Erin. I'm from littleslovelearning.com. I'm a former classroom teacher, but I actually didn't know how to teach reading correctly until 6 years after I left the classroom. I went on a journey of discovery of how to teach kids to read properly based on the science of reading and all of the brain science. And now that I have learned how kids learn to read, I want to share all of my tips with you so you can teach your little one to read at home even before kindergarten, which is so awesome. And one of the tips that I always share with parents is we want kids to read decodable books when they are learning how to read. I have other videos about decodable books that I will link down below if you are interested. But before you jump into a decodable book, there are actually steps that I want you to take in order to prepare your child to tackle something as challenging as reading a book. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before you ever bring out that decodable book, let's rewind and let's first double check your little one's letter sound fluency. You want to make sure that when they see a letter, they know the sound instantly and they don't have to think about it. So if I hold up this letter, they are going to say ah right away without having to think. And then I'm going to check the next one. A, d, g. I just want them to say that letter sound and nothing else. I don't want them to say the keyword. I don't want them to say the letter name, just the sound. We want to make sure that they are super fluent with their letter sounds. If they can do that, then the next thing I want to double check is they can orally blend sounds into words. So for example, if I told them a 3-sound word, could they tell me what the word was? Like this, j, a, x. Could they tell me the word is Jax? Just orally. That's super important that they know how to blend. They understand how blending works. If they can't do it, do a 3-sound word, reverse back and do a 2-sound word. See if they can just blend 2 sounds together. What's my mystery word? At. At. Can they tell you that the word is at? If they can do that with 2-sound words and 3-sound words and they can orally blend lots of different types of words, that is a great sign. If they have letter sound fluency when they're looking at those printed letters and they can orally blend, then they are in a really great spot for our next step. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to go through the book and I want you to pull out the individual words and I want you to put these words on note cards or Post-it notes. You can print them out. And I want you to play games just with the individual words. Why do I want you to do this? I want your child to already be exposed to reading these words way before they see them in that decodable book. There's so many ways you can play with words that you put on note cards or Post-it notes. You can put them in a sensory bin and have your little one find them and read the word. You can put them as a scavenger hunt up around the house or outside. You can play a regular board game that you have at your house, like Candyland or Chutes and Ladders, but every time it's their turn, they choose a note card and they have to read it. Whatever you come up with is great, but you want your little one to be practicing with the individual words before they ever get to the book. If they can read the individual words on note cards, once they get to the book, they're going to have no problem. We have one more step before we get to that book. So we've checked letter sound fluency, we've checked blending, we know they can read those individual words. Now what I want you to do is go through the book and I want you to pull out the sentences. And I want you to type those out on paper or write them on paper like this. Once you have the sentences separated like this, one sentence on a strip of paper, I want you to play games with this again. This is so much fun. One of the things you can do, especially if it's just paper, is crumple it up, all the sentences, put on some music and have a snowball fight and have everybody throwing the sentences around the room. When the music stops, they have to pick up the sentence closest to them, open it up, and then read it. You can also play games with these sentences, just like I mentioned before, Candyland or Chutes and Ladders. Every time it's their turn, they have to read the sentence. Or you could play a game like Memory or Go Fish with these sentence strips if you made 2 copies of them. Whatever works best for your little one. But you want them to practice reading the sentences. We want them to be fluent with one sentence at a time before we expect them to read multiple sentences that are in a book. So do you see how we baby stepped our way up? We went from making sure we had letter sound fluency and that they can orally blend, worked on the words individually, worked on the sentences individually. So now you know what comes last. Last, we can introduce the decodable book because now they are going to be super comfortable with all of the words and sentences that are in this book. So when they see them, they're going to be much more confident in reading these sentences. If they still feel overwhelmed because there are a lot of words on a page, don't forget you can always cover up. Just leave one sentence available for them to see at a time and cover the rest. You can also cover up the picture so there are no picture clues. I like to use paper to cover up the pictures so that my little ones can't use the pictures as a clue. But they should be very comfortable with all of these sentences because you've done so much work before you got to the book. So much work with just the words and just the sentences, and now they're going to be super confident reading this book. Now you might be wondering, but wait, do I have to do this for every decodable book my child reads? Because that feels like a lot. I totally get it. It does feel like a lot. And no, you are not going to have to do this for every decodable book. If your child has no trouble reading a decodable book, that's great. You don't have to do all of the steps beforehand. Maybe they are just ready and they're taking off what they're reading and they can dive right into a decodable book. But if your child is struggling reading that decodable book and you know they know their letter sounds and they're able to blend, that's when you want to back up and you want to work with the words and you want to work with the sentences to make sure that they feel more comfortable before they get to the book. I have heard so many success stories from families using this strategy where their child wasn't able to read a book before, but once they practiced with the words and the sentences, once they got to the book, it felt so much easier for the child and for the parent too. And so this is definitely a strategy to use if your child is struggling reading decodable books. You want to try this and make sure that you're making it fun and engaging so by the time they get to the book, they're super confident. I've linked my 3 favorite sets of decodable books below: the Jackson Wren set from Decode by Heart, the Toddlers Can Read decodable books, and the Charge Mommy decodable books. They are linked down below. If you have a new reader, it's very, very important that you invest in good quality decodable books so that they can practice their phonics skills. Most libraries do not carry decodable books, unfortunately, although we're trying to get that changed. We would love for libraries to carry books like these so that little ones can have practice with their phonics skills. But in the meantime, it's very important for you to invest in good quality decodable books, practice at the word level, practice at the sentence level before you get to the book, and your child is going to be so proud of themselves for being able to read an entire book on their own. If you have any questions about this or anything else I share, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Littles Love Learning blog. You can also head to my website, littleslovelearning.com. I love sharing my tips and tricks with you so you can teach your little one to read at home even before kindergarten, and we can make reading fun, joyful, playful, and set them up for a lifetime of success. Until next time, happy learning. Bye.